Now, ladies and gentlemen, building on that discussion, we have examined the technology and infrastructure required to support the AI era. So the next question is, can Malaysia's infrastructure keep up with the AI-driven growth? As investments in AI continue to accelerate, infrastructure readiness will be critical in determining how quickly industries can innovate and scale. So this panel, coming up next, brings together infrastructure leaders, operators, and technology experts to discuss where Malaysia stands today and what it will take to build the foundation required for long-term AI-driven growth. So moderating this session is Mr. Farhad Azizian, Data Center Solution Manager for Southeast Asia at Delta Electronics. And for our distinguished panelists for this discussion are Mr. Al-Isha bin Ishak, Chairman of Cybersecurity Malaysia and Advanced Technologies Asia Berhad, Mr. Cham Tat In, Managing Director of Equinix Malaysia, Mr. Law Kin Fong, AI Research and Development Manager of My Storage Technology. So, ladies and gentlemen, there you go, our moderator and esteemed panelists for this panel discussion. Without further ado, let's put our hands together and let us welcome our moderator and our esteemed panelists to the stage for this round of panel discussions. Mr. Farhad, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to host such a distinguished panel. Already introduced, so no need for introduction. They are very well-known experts in the industry, in their own field. We have a very good mixture of experts in the panel today, and we try to get the most out of it. So I'll try to speak less and leave the stage to our panels to talk about it. Jumping straight into it, we know that data center industry growth in Malaysia, and especially in the Johor area, is staggering. I was just reading this report from DC Byte yesterday, 2026 data center growth, and guess in the APAC area, in the top 10 metro markets on data center, who is on the top? Where is on the top? It's Johor. Following by Sydney, Shanghai, Tokyo, Beijing, and Melbourne. So you can guess Johor is standing on the top of the list. So the speed of the deployment of data center in Malaysia is astronomical. So I would like to address the first question to you, Cham. Considering this speed of deployment in the market, and also we heard earlier from the authorities that sustainability is a key for deployment data center in Malaysia, how the operators keep the balance between the speed of deployment and the sustainability goals? And what are the priorities? Is there any trade-offs, and how we move forward?
So there are three parts to the, good morning everyone, three parts to the questions. So let me take the first one, speed. So as you know, we're seeing at breakneck speed, things that are happening in Johor right now. And despite the speed at which we're building data centers, and just to bear in mind, right, 2 years ago in 2024, when Equinix entered the Malaysian market, an average data center, a data center would take about average 24 months to be fully ready. Construction, and you put in all the equipment to be ready. Today, 2 years later, we're talking about 12 months. Now, most of the time, when we talk about speed, we look at the building from outside, right? All of us, we drive through data centers, and we say, wow, how fast someone builds a data center. But don't forget, you've seen Sagda's presentation just now. The complexity of the power system alone today within the data center. See, back then, 2-3 years ago, most workloads were like industry standard Intel servers, core banking, commercial kind of application, right? Which takes up rack density of about maybe 4 to at most 10 kVA or kilowatt racks. You've seen how the trend has moved to now, we're talking 20 to 40 kVA racks today, easily. And we're moving to 100 to 200 kVA racks. So just imagine if you're speeding up the construction of a data center, the complexity is no longer the building. It's now inside the building. The power systems, now with power system, with higher rack density for AI workloads, here comes the cooling issue. Now, cooling is not a simple thing, right? A lot of people think you just draw some pipes, chill water, and you solve the whole world's problem. Now, all of us here in this, we have houses and we have condos. What is your number one problem with your house? Plumbing, right? So can you imagine, in data center, you cannot afford to have a plumbing issue with your cooling system, especially when you're running AI server, and you're talking about resiliency and high availability. So the complexity has shifted from the building design or the external building to the inside. So as a result of which, when you look at a data center build, speed, sustainability, and resiliency are not competing priorities. You have to balance them all at the very beginning of your data center construction. So starting from, for example, location of your data centers. I know recently we have had some issues with locations of data centers. You have seen it in the papers. So companies like us are very careful. So we pick tech parks, for example, in NTP, Cyberjaya. We make sure we're within the zoning regions of data centers. Then we work with the national grid, like Tenaga, right, in terms of the grid planning. So we do not come in and say, I need 200 megawatts today or 400 megawatts today. We work with Tenaga on their grid planning, water resources, the resources availability, the long-term availability of all the natural resources. You have to work along with utility providers, and you have to understand your customers. You cannot just build a data center and hope that someone comes and take the space. It's not a retail wholesale kind of like shopping lots like this, right? Because just as people are building a lot of hyperscale data centers in Johor, today let me tell you, there are more than 20 over hyperscalers in Johor, building almost 7 gigawatts in total of capacity. Now we're seeing a shift from not just model training to inferencing now. Now, when you deal with inferencing data centers, the purpose-built data centers for inferencing at the edge is very different from the hyperscaler densities like the 400, 200 kVA, right? Because you don't need such high density, you need less, more complex cooling systems. So companies like us, Equinix, where we deal with a varied customer, from model training to inferencing, we have to strike a very good balance between power, water. So in other words, our power, PUE and our WEE have to be balanced. We're not 100% air cool or 100% water cool. We strike a balance between water cool and air cool depending on the customer workload. So yes, in a pretty long way, I actually spent an hour on this. But anyway, I know we don't have that much time for this. So just to show that talking about speed, sustainability, and resiliency, you have to look at them in balance. Now, the second question, what is the trade-off? The trade-off is it takes time. It takes discipline. So it's not like on day one you say, let's go build a data center. Okay, get the architect, get the engineer, award out the construction contract, and we build the data center. No, it is very disciplined approach. Like I said, starting from where you acquire the land, talking to the utility providers. Like we sit down a lot. I meet with Tenaga on a regular basis, and to understand their grid planning, right? Their long-term grid planning over 5 years. This industry is a long-term industry. So we look at 25 years, not just 5 years, 25 years in terms of grid, in terms of long-term availability. When is water coming? When are the new sources of water coming in? Are there alternative sources of water, right? Because of the sustainability effort. Renewable energy. So we have to plan all these in mind at the very beginning. So the trade-off is, yes, it takes a longer time, but it is better than you retrofitting all these things later on because of the when you face issues, because the complexity is enormous, right? So the priorities over the next 5 years, really, I would say, number one, well, I mean, our MITRE friends have gone on, but the government collaboration with government and utilities company is almost like top of the list. I spend 50% of my time with government agencies and utility providers, right? I mean, that's more than what I used to do when I was in the IT industry, you know? Today, I spend almost 50% of my time meeting government agencies, meeting utility providers. Then we spend time looking at our workload. Now, why is it I can tell you that we're seeing a shift to inferencing? Now, I'm not saying model training is not happening. It is still happening. We're still getting a lot of model training coming in to Malaysia. Interestingly, Malaysia is kind of like a hub. Johor is kind of developing into an AI hub of model training and model inferencing, right? So we have to understand what sort of workloads are coming in, our customer demands, what are they asking for, right? So we don't just build and say, please come. We build with customer demand in mind, right? Like I say, resource planning on all these things, the cooling, advanced cooling principles for data centers, that's something you need to work on. Water treatment, water management, alternative water sources, renewable energy availability, these are factors that we will probably have to spend a lot of attention in the next couple of years. And one more thing, which is transparency in your environmental performance indicators. That, I think, will happen in the next couple of years. It's right now. Oh, okay, still. I thought the battery ran out. Just cut me off. It says, that's it, you've got 5 minutes.
Back
to you.
Thanks very much. That was very insightful information about how we keep the balance between the speed and the sustainability and resilience that actually going hand in hand together. And obviously that required the collaboration and transparency between all the stakeholders involved, from the supply chain, design, operators, even government and authorities, which you mentioned should be on the top of the list. So now I want to jump from the infrastructure or gray space, as we call it, to the white space area. So when we talk about the data center growth, obviously we're talking about a huge amount of data. From your perspective, Kim Fong, I want to know how important is the data storage role in such a AI-type data centers?
Right, thank you. Hi, I'm Kim Fong from My Storage. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chiam, for sharing just now. I would like to resonate from there. You know, AI workloads are getting more and more. And in Malaysia, inferencing is getting more important. Thank you for Mr. Secretary sharing just now. Just a guess, in Malaysia, what is the largest inference use case? Sorry for using that. Basically, it's recommendation engine. You guys are big shoppers. Everyone's on Shopee and buying stuff. So imagine, where is the AI workload happening when actually you type in some keywords, I don't know, buy a plumbing. So what happened behind? The inference workload is like this. So I have to go search these particular persons. What are your preference? That's the structured data behind. What is the existing plumbing use cases or product listings there? Those are very unstructured. Different players will actually write a different way. And then the AI will have to understand all this as a full context. I'm going into how the AI models is thinking. Then all this data is long and actually continuous. I have to translate from structured to unstructured, putting them together to a context. Then I load it in to my big B300s in the Kimi K3 models or proprietary code source models. Then thinking started. The models started to spill a lot of thinking tokens. I mean, I want to talk about tokens here. So those are data, a lot of data. So there are input data, there are output data, and after they're recommended, oh, you should go to this shop to buy this plumbing, those data need to be stored back into all of the database. All these are data generated from just one search. Imagine millions of people using it. So from that point of view, what I'm saying is we need to understand how do we control the unstructured data storage, the retrieval of it, how fast you are getting it, and how fast you actually reply to customers. Are you willing to say, actually, I wait for 10 minutes only, I can get where's your recommendations for your plumbing? No. So that's where the data kind of infra looking. So from my expertise point of view is we are building solutions, not only just the software, but we have to understand how the AI models are thinking, from how data are stored and retrieved, and how we actually spilling out. So it changed from the data from dollar to terabyte to the new kind of settings called the time to first token. How fast your model are spewing the first token, your total token context length. How do we actually have this balance between your GPU RAM, your DRAM, and now I'll talk about storage. From our sides, we have SSD. How this actually go around the whole thing. I want to share one point here is storage is not just storage anymore if you just store the data and don't use. It become a transition from storage to memory to AI workload. So this lines is blurring. So from here, I'll share one more thing is actually VariableBin. Just now, a gentleman just shared about VariableBin. VariableBin, each of the core actually are pairing with 1 petabyte of SSD, just to make sure all what I said just now, the contexts are being stored nicely and actually translated to very fast experience to the users. So yeah, that's the overall understanding of data storage and how we actually would change how we actually design. And then it comes to actually the lead time. How fast can we actually get the servers to actually do this? Then how the engineers, I mean, later I will actually talk about talent, how the engineers are actually utilizing correctly to have an efficient workload on this. So yeah, that's my answer on that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Like, it's interesting to know, like, in the white space, it's not just the GPU. Now the role of the data storage and all these technologies helping to improve the performance so you can do your online shopping. Okay. So I want to go and look at the safety and security of the data in a data center area. You probably heard in the news not a long time ago, on July 21st, OpenAI publicly disclosed that one of their AI models actually escaped from the sandbox. So sandbox is just a terminology for the environment, a control environment for testing an AI model. So actually the AI managed to escape from the sandbox and breach to some of the other servers, and they didn't realize this for days until it was found out. So that shows how important is the security, and especially cybersecurity in the AI era. So, Ishal, you are the expert in this area. What are the risks and how the organization should address these risks?
Thanks, Farhad. Assalamualaikum. Very good morning, everyone. I'm still fighting a cough, so excuse me if I pause in between. It's funny, I've known Chiam since the 90s, and he was with Digital at that point, and I was a .com entrepreneur. And here we are in 2026, sitting on the same stage. Kin Fong, we've been collaborating on a few things, and I visited my storages, Emily is here as well, HQ in Taiwan 2 years ago. So it's phenomenal. But when we talk about AI and cybersecurity, the challenges are massive, which is why there's no more hair to lose, because you cannot sleep at night, etc. So today I'm wearing two hats. In 2024, Minister Gobin made me the chair of Cybersecurity Malaysia. Cybersecurity Malaysia is a government entity, 28 years old, started in Mimos and is the operating and technical arm of cybersecurity for the government. In Malaysia, we have a cybersecurity regulator, that is NACSA, National Cybersecurity Agency, under the National Security Council, which is under the Prime Minister's office. We are in the process of merging Cybersecurity Malaysia with NACSA in the background over the next 6 months, so that we have a singular point of contact and action and implementation, etc. This year, I was privileged to be approached by Mr. Ong, the founder of Advanced Technologies Asia. We are, to be the non-executive chairman, we are a 19-year-old M&E specialist company. In short, we build telecom towers, we build data centers, and we do solar installations. And Delta is a partner of ours, and this is when we start looking at security by design. But security by design in the traditional world, back in the last 30, 40 years, was less complex. Today, as Farhad mentioned, the OpenAI model that left the sandbox attacked Hugging Face. Hugging Face found out, and this is all Western model, yeah? It's a closed model. What did Hugging Face do? Hugging Face had to use an Eastern model to counter back. Essentially, these things have been happening in the last 6 months, starting 3-4 months ago with Mythos. And then Mythos was Anthropic. OpenAI has got their Cyber GPT 5.6, etc., etc. So this space is model vulnerabilities. AI models that we are building, unfortunately, is still a black box. While it is human design, it is curated, but for those of you who know AI codes, etc., it learns and builds and has its own mind. Now, for companies like Delta, who are building equipment, infrastructure, etc., can you imagine the complexity in the architecture, the dynamic evolution, and the constant need to ensure that the infrastructure that you have and build are defending, but also evolving along with the multiple AI vulnerabilities. The second item that AI brings about in our space currently is data privacy. So as consumers, we talk, we put our data in ChatGPT, Claude, etc., Gemini and all that. It's easy. As a company, our employees and management and staff put our PowerPoint, minutes of meetings into those clouds. That's essentially data leak of data privacy, etc., etc. And then, of course, you know the dark web. There are so many things that you can find in the dark web, including your Maybank, CIMB, RHB username and password that I myself, with my own team, have sat down a couple of weeks ago, copy and paste, username and password, and logged in. Data leaked available in the dark web. But of course, you can't do anything. You can only view because you need authentication with the two-factor authentication nowadays done by Bank Negara, etc., etc. So AI compounds and aggregates these kinds of data leaks and all that. So what do companies do? Ultimately, most companies, the larger and medium-scale companies, have got cybersecurity vendors specific for cybersecurity. Number two, companies like Delta, who serves your infrastructure, etc., are built secure by design and continue to invest in the cyber aspects. However, more and more, what we're discovering is companies are looking at third-party vendors who has hybrid cybersecurity implementation that can aggregate existing data from the likes of Palo Alto, Fortinet, Google Mandiant, etc., with their own AI engines in order to protect. And these are some of the things that we at Advance are looking at as well. As we build infrastructure for clients with Delta, etc., But we as vendors, contractors, partners, we also need to be looking at how do you continuously maintain your client's infrastructure to be continuously secure. So looking outside the box of normal vendors, the world of AI has introduced a different level of complexity. Number two is adhering to frameworks. So you've got the NIST framework, et cetera. When you choose your vendors, ensure that beyond ISO 27001, you also ideally vendor that has ISO 42001, which is AI ready, et cetera. It's very new, it's very difficult to come by, and sometimes your vendor is still going through those certifications. But it is important to respect and adopt those frameworks and ensure that your value chain, your supply chain has all those. Because in conclusion is this: the government, all governments in the world will have regulation, but enforcement, as you know, is a totally different agenda aspect altogether. All governments are challenged, and which is why wearing the cybersecurity hat today, it's always good to sit with the industry, because ultimately the products, the tools, the network, the protocols and all that are driven by industry. Government will only govern by law, etc. The collaboration between academia, industry and government must continue to be strengthened and deepened in order to ensure that the frameworks, the code of practice in the industry continues to be driven. So AI, big headache, but we face that on a daily basis across the world.
Thanks very much. That was a great answer. And I totally agree. Like AI is a black box still, that we are learning about it and understand the vulnerability of the technologies that we are developing. And safety by design is the key for sure. Okay, going back to the infrastructure part of it. So Sakta already highlighted in the morning that how the infrastructure is evolving for the AI type data center, and the infrastructure should reshape for the AI type data centers. So what are the main characteristics of the new infrastructure for the AI type workloads?
So when we look at AI, I mean, today, AI is reshaping every industry that is in existence. AI is also reshaping the way the data center industry builds and operates. Today, when we look at AI data centers, and most of the time you read this in publications and it says, Company X is building a 500 megawatts hyperscale facility to support AI workload. So you always hear power, space, and cooling or water cooling. Yes, conversations today center around high power rack density, center around efficient power systems, advanced cooling system, but there's more to that than these three major parameters. Now, you hear about security. So secure interconnection is one of them, right? Then proximity to cloud, adjacency to cloud is important, because you hear about latency just now, right? To data platforms, yeah? Don't forget data platforms, because somebody has to store massive amount of data somewhere, and you have to have close proximity or easy accessibility because of latency, right? In today's world, it's all about latency. How fast can you move information all around? So this is one part of the data center that we see. The big hyperscalers building large data centers to support model training. We call this model training, right? On the other hand, things are shifting. So data sovereignty is becoming an issue, right? Heard it just now? Especially AI-generated data. Right? And again, we mentioned just now, inferencing is beginning to show up a lot in the AI workload. Now imagine, inferencing and data sovereignty goes hand in hand because a lot of inference data are, you can consider it high security, highly secured and important information. So those informations cannot just go out on the web just like that. So you have to make sure that as a result of sovereignty and all this, the data centers have to be in country or close to where your data is. So we're seeing this trend where instead of in the past where we move huge amount of data to some central location somewhere in the world, processing zillion petabytes, there's such a thing. I don't know where we are now. We've gone so far ahead. Petabytes was where I stopped at, so I don't know. Maybe it's zettabytes, I don't know what it is. So instead of that, now is moving models to the data. In other words, you train the model somewhere around the world, and then you move the model to where the data is. For example, we're seeing companies that build models outside of Malaysia, now moving them into Malaysia to process ASEAN-related data. So it's already happening, right? We're seeing it now. A lot of the data, shopping data that you're doing now is like that now. ASEAN data is being processed closer to where we are. Why? Sovereignty, latency, because you want faster response. So imagine you having to move your data to somewhere in California to be processed and then waiting for the results to come back. That will take a long time, right? So now we can do it at milliseconds. For example, the latency between Johor and Singapore now, from our data center point of view, is less than 1 millisecond. You know how important is 1 millisecond? That is fantastic, right? If you can achieve that, that is fantastic for data movement and for processing, right? So what you're seeing is now two different classes of data centers. One, huge data centers for model training, and very soon you see distributed edge. You're going to hear this very soon, distributed edge AI data center built with secured connectivity, with good interconnection, access, very close proximity to cloud, to your customers, your business partners, everybody, because you want faster processing where your data is. So we're going to see this sort of trend happening even within the data center landscape.
Thanks very much. I'm just a little bit cautious of time because after this we have a break, and I'm sure everyone is eager to get to the break soon. Going back to the storage part of it, so we discussed about how important is the data storage in the new era of the AI. How a new data storage architecture is going to look like for an AI-type ecosystem?
Right. I mean, resonate back again about sovereignty, data privacies, and also that. So there are customers looking for us. They say they need it to be sovereign. They need to understand how they do it. And again, control is the essence. How certain industry know where their data is, how the AI is accessing it, and how the different departments are using it. So over here, what we are talking about is the AI data platform is something very important to actually not only orchestrate all these models that's running on top, but what data are fed to it and which department are using it. So from our sides, actually, we are working very closely with industries. And I mean, I'm switching my hat again. I'm actually a CTO of Cognify AI. Basically, it's a joint venture between two giants, Pfizer and also Silver Lake. So we are looking at AI for banking. How do we actually make sure the banks understand where the data is actually using, how the models are utilizing it, and how it's being stored. Then, behind that, we actually started talking about guardrails, how they are guarding the models, utilizing the AI, the data, and how it's actually spilling out to the different departments. Should they actually access particular stuff? Should they do it? Then that's on private. But on government sides, definitely we actually, MyStorage and Pfizer are working closely with governments. Later, actually, you have to run to MCMC. There's a mini sovereign clouds running there. We're working with PQC from UPM. So it's how post-quantum cryptography and AI can work together to actually secure this part. And actually where the local Malaysian made, just now Maida, actually director, actually talked about, Malaysian made is very important. And one more thing is actually sovereign is not about just locations. It's all about talent. Having sovereign data that organized and actually controlled by third party outside of Malaysia is not sovereign. So that's my answer on here.
Thank you. And I want to address the last question to Vishal again. So we discussed about all the risks in cybersecurity in a data center. So where the Malaysia stands right now, and who are the key players and the stakeholders to deploy the cybersecurity in the Malaysia data center industry, which is growing very fast, and how we can be sure about using the AI applications that we all do already?
Thanks, Farhad. Unfortunately, the answer is not black and white because of AI and the gaps. So from a National Critical Information Infrastructure standpoint, NCII, we have National Cybersecurity Agency. The Act, which is the Malaysia Cybersecurity Act, came into force in August 2024. And in September 2024, NACSA defined 11 critical sectors. And within those 11 critical sectors, such as healthcare, energy, etc., there are sector leads. The sector leads, for example, in energy, is Tenaga, is also Petronas, etc. These sector leads are supposed to build the code of practice, as well as standards and procedures within their organization, but also with their supply chain. So for example, with Advance, we are a vendor, a partner to Tenaga. A couple of weeks ago, I sat down with Tenaga's CISO and looked at what are Tenaga's plans forward, not only to defend its current infrastructure, but as you saw from Maida and Delta's presentation with the new architecture, new power requirements, companies such as Advance, we need to be advanced and keep in touch with all the latest developments as well. So NACSA, National Cybersecurity Agency, focuses on that. But this is where it gets challenging. That's just for the big boys. However, manufacturing in Penang, that entire sector, SMEs and all that, we are challenged because capital, knowledge, platforms. So the reality is, the age of AI is forcing all of us, the rest of the world, not just the big companies, to rethink how can we really defend, but also collaborate at maybe at a location level, at a sectoral level, across FMMs, multiple Federation of Malaysian Manufacturers, for example. They've got multiple pillars, etc. And this is the big headache, because there is a lot of intellectual property and all that. Like Kin Fong spoke about storage, right? I mean, here's the double-edged sword. NVMe with SSD, direct storage, ultra-fast storage to the CPU. Fantastic. But it also means your data leak will also be very fast, because it works the other way around, right? So, but as you know, Chiam and I are already in the 6 series, coming to the 6 series. So we've seen this before. Technology continues to evolve, and I think the whole point about collaboration, working with partners like Delta and its ecosystem, etc., can bring us closer together. It'll never be perfect, but the idea is we have to wake up and realize the continuity is important. MCMC is doing sovereign cloud, but as you said, sovereign is not just location. All right? Malaysia is very blessed. My storage with Phison is Malaysian. Phison is Taiwan, public listed. Delta is there, but with my storage here and a Malaysian team, we are more sovereign than most other countries because we have my storage in Phison. In the storage, which is the most important, one of the most important aspects of cybersecurity currently. Thanks for that.
Thank you. it's great to hear that there are actions in plan and moving forward. And yes, I agree, this is an evolving environment that required continuous collaboration between all different parties, from the supplier, manufacturer, operators, and all the companies that handling these things. So maybe just to wrap up, we've got only 2 minutes left. Gentlemen, give us the last wrap-up summary of today's sessions, and also how we can get these data center industry in Malaysia still attractive and ongoing. Please, quick, in like maybe 30 seconds.
So Malaysia has already demonstrated that we can attract significant data investments. The challenge next is, how do we evolve from being a destination for data center investments to an AI innovation and digital ecosystem hub? Right? So it's not just capacity, it's not just building digital infrastructure now, it's the ecosystem that goes on top of that. The AI ecosystem and everything. Cybersecurity, everything is layered on top of that. So I think that to us will be key, whether we are able to retain our position as a global AI hub.
Thank you. So resonate on that. Basically, partnership, talent is very important here. Growing the local partnership ecosystems makes the whole thing run smoothly. Having the talent that understands all these parts is important. That's also what I actually put all my energy in, and hiring the fresh, the smartest people to train them on the latest. Imagine my guys are actually reading papers every day to understand about AI models. So that kind of passion is needed in Malaysia to actually elevate. We don't want to actually just build for others to use. We have to use it ourselves.
Thanks, Kevin. So 3 things: infrastructure, as we know, energy resilience, water sustainability, etc., becomes very important. We heard from Maida, we have Johor doing their best, Selangor, Pahang, Kedah, etc. Second is the ecosystem, as Chiam said, and I think companies like Equinix, Delta, etc., in Malaysia, they are investing in Malaysians, and that touches the third aspect, which is talent. All of us must continue, like my storage, to hire Malaysians, build the skill sets, because ultimately it is a borderless world. But the location of those data centers, the threats, etc., are within our borders. So having center of excellences, hopefully Delta will do that next in Malaysia, R&D, etc., and hopefully the government with Maida can support your incentives and all that to bring some of the R&D and COEs into Malaysia. Then the ecosystem, as Chiam said, can flourish, and the talent development can continue, because ultimately the bottom line is, without people, AI will not exist. We invented AI. Thank you very much.
Thank you all for listening. I appreciate everyone. Thank you.